A bond forged in politics, Trump and Netanyahu's early alliance. Built on shared conservative ideologies, their relationship suggested unprecedented U.S.-Israel cooperation. High-profile decisions underscored this partnership. The U.S. Embassy moved to Jerusalem, breaking decades of policy. The U.S. recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. These actions were celebrated by Netanyahu and his supporters. Trump's Middle East peace plan was heavily weighted towards Israel. The Abraham Accords normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations. This period marked a high point in the Trump-Netanyahu partnership. Their alliance set a new tone for U.S. engagement in the Middle East. Cracks in the facade, Trump's public criticisms emerge. Despite the outward appearance of a steadfast alliance, subtle indications suggested friction between Trump and Netanyahu. Trump's foreign policy was deeply transactional, prioritizing immediate gains for the U.S. and his political standing. This meant even close allies were not exempt from criticism if their actions misaligned with his expectations. The strain became apparent when Trump publicly criticized Netanyahu for congratulating Joe Biden on his election victory. For Trump, who valued personal loyalty, Netanyahu's swift acknowledgement of Biden's win was seen as a betrayal. From Netanyahu's perspective, maintaining strong ties with the U.S. was crucial, irrespective of who occupied the White House. These public disagreements reflected deeper tensions, highlighting the fragility of a personalized approach to international relations. The alliance, while beneficial at times, was overly reliant on the personal chemistry between the two leaders. Netanyahu's tightrope walk, navigating U.S. political tides. Netanyahu's career is marked by his skillful navigation of U.S. relations. His understanding of American politics is profound. He knows bipartisan support in Washington is crucial. In 2024, Netanyahu's Likud party preferred Trump. They feared a confrontational stance from a Harris administration. They believed Trump would offer Israel more freedom. Netanyahu waited for the U.S. election outcome. U.S. politics deeply influence Israeli decisions. Uncertainty in U.S. policy created a holding pattern. Netanyahu's partners passed laws to block reopening the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. This strategy aims to entrench policies. Netanyahu shapes the terrain to Israel's advantage. U.S. support is vital for Israel's security. Netanyahu's navigation of U.S. political tides remains crucial. America First, the transactional nature of Trump's foreign policy. Donald Trump's America First foreign policy doctrine represented a significant departure from decades of established American international engagement. This approach prioritized immediate U.S. interests, often defined in narrow economic or security terms, above traditional alliances or long-term commitments. Relationships were primarily transactional, based on a quid pro quo assessment of benefits. This philosophy suggested a U.S. less inclined to bear the burdens of global leadership, focusing on direct, measurable returns. This approach was not confined to the Middle East. Its effects were felt globally. Trump's presidency saw significant strains with NATO allies and withdrawals from key international agreements. The emphasis was on renegotiating terms to be more favorable to American interests, often with little regard for broader implications. This created an environment of unpredictability in global affairs. Critics argue that while a transactional focus might yield short-term advantages, it comes at a considerable long-term cost. The diminishment of U.S. soft power and the depletion of diplomatic capital can have lasting negative effects. By prioritizing immediate deals over enduring relationships, the America First strategy risks isolating the U.S. and diminishing its capacity to lead on the global stage. Gaza, Lebanon, and beyond. Trump's potential green light for Israeli actions. The regional context remains highly volatile, particularly following the Hamas-led attacks on Israel on October 7, 2023. These events triggered a significant escalation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, placing Netanyahu under immense pressure. A potential second Trump presidency is anticipated to offer Netanyahu more latitude in prosecuting these conflicts. Reports suggested Trump might give Israel a freer hand in Gaza and Lebanon, reducing American pressure concerning civilian casualties and military operations. Trump's strong pro-Israel stance could embolden the Israeli government to pursue more aggressive military objectives. This would mark a significant shift from the more cautious approach of other administrations. The potential for escalation in multiple conflict zones would increase, as Israeli leaders might feel less constrained by American disapproval. Such a scenario carries significant risks, potentially unraveling delicate regional balances and sparking wider instability. The West Bank question: annexation and regional alarms. The issue of Israeli annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank remains a deeply contentious element in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. During his first term, Trump's administration signaled support for Israel's right-wing government in potentially annexing these territories. Recent reports indicate that discussions within Netanyahu's cabinet regarding West Bank annexation have intensified. The domestic political landscape in Israel continues to drive this agenda. Neighboring Jordan has reacted with profound alarm to the prospect of West Bank annexation. King Abdullah II has stated that such a move would be viewed by Jordan as a war crime and pose an existential threat. The wider regional implications of West Bank annexation would be severe, potentially unraveling the peace treaty between Israel and Jordan. It could ignite widespread unrest among Palestinians and provoke a strong reaction from other Arab states. Large-scale annexation would represent the final nail in the coffin for the two-state solution, leaving a legacy of perpetual conflict and instability. Alternative futures: a different U.S. administration's approach. The Biden administration's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has offered a contrast to the anticipated policies of a second Trump term. While maintaining strong support for Israel's security, the Biden White House has adopted a more balanced public posture. This includes calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, expressions of concern over civilian casualties, and pressure for increased humanitarian aid access. A potential Harris presidency is expected to adopt an even more assertive stance towards certain Israeli policies. This could involve leveraging U.S. military aid to ensure compliance with international humanitarian law. A Harris administration would likely voice strong opposition to any Israeli attempts at West Bank annexation. The emphasis would return to internationally recognized frameworks for resolving the conflict, including support for a two-state solution. This would involve a more concerted effort to engage with Palestinian leadership and address their grievances. Despite these potential shifts, many Palestinians express skepticism about whether any U.S. administration would fundamentally alter their predicament. There is a widespread perception among Palestinians that both major American political parties are indifferent to their suffering. This cynicism underscores the difficulty of resolving a conflict where trust in external mediators is exceptionally low. The Iranian gambit: Netanyahu's hopes pinned on Trump. For Netanyahu, the threat posed by Iran, particularly its nuclear program, has been a central preoccupation. Halting Iran's progress towards nuclear weapons capability is a paramount national security objective. Netanyahu reportedly believes that his prospects for securing robust U.S. support for action against Iran are higher with Trump in the White House. Trump's maximum pressure campaign of sanctions and confrontational rhetoric towards Tehran resonated with Netanyahu's hawkish stance. This alignment suggests that a second Trump term could see a more coordinated U.S.-Israeli posture against Iran. However, such a policy direction is fraught with considerable risks and complexities. Any military action against Iran's nuclear facilities would carry the danger of igniting a major regional conflict. The pursuit of a more confrontational approach towards Iran, even with U.S. backing, would be a high-stakes gamble. The price of business: long-term costs of transactional diplomacy. The foreign policy approach during the Trump administration reoriented U.S. international relations towards a transactional basis. This method prioritized immediate gains, bilateral deals, and explicit quid pro quos over long-term alliances. Critics point to significant, enduring costs associated with such a narrowly focused diplomatic strategy. One of the most significant long-term costs is the erosion of trust within established alliances. When international partnerships are reduced to mere transactions, their resilience in times of crisis diminishes. This transactionalism impacts U.S. credibility and its standing as a global leader. Consistency and predictability are vital in international affairs. A transactional approach can lead to a more fragmented global order, making cooperation on critical issues more difficult. In the Middle East, this approach can exacerbate tensions, fuel arms races, and increase the likelihood of conflict.